Magandang buhay mga bata! Tara, samahan ninyo akong matuto kasama si
Teacher Aika, your online teacher. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell for more videos. Thank you! Matatag Curriculum, Science Grade 4, Quarter 3, Lesson 1. Our topic for today is about describing force. This is Teacher Aika, your online teacher. Let's start! Learning competency. The learners participate in guided activities to discover and predict how rigid and soft objects can be moved and or changed in shape. Objectives. First, identify rigid and soft objects based on physical characteristics. Second, classify objects as rigid and soft objects. Third, define force as a push or a pull exerted on an object. Fourth, describe forces using arrows in given situations. Fifth, identify forces in our daily task. And last, investigate how rigid and soft objects respond to applied forces. Day 1. Let's have first a short review. Think, ink, share. Pushing and pulling experiences. Answer the questions in your science notebook. After writing, share your ideas with your seatmate and listen to theirs. Have fun exploring together. First, have you ever experienced being pushed or pulled by somebody? Second, have you encountered situations where objects were pushed or pulled? Third, have you been involved in pushing or pulling something or someone? Fourth, in your experiences, was anyone hurt due to pushing or pulling? Activity number 1, self-assessment. Read the learning targets. Rate yourself in the before learning the lesson column, and we'll revisit these after the lesson to check your progress. Draw 1 star if I still need help to do this. 2 stars if I can do this by myself. 3 stars if I can do this by myself and in different ways. Here are the learning targets. First, I can identify rigid and soft objects based on their physical characteristics. Second, I can describe the characteristics of rigid and soft objects. Third, I can classify objects as rigid or soft objects. Fourth, I can define force as a push or pull exerted on an object. Fifth, I can describe forces using arrows in given situations. Sixth, I can identify forces in our daily task. And seventh, I can investigate how rigid and soft objects respond to applied forces. Activity number 2, anagram game. Unscramble the letters. Rearrange the letters in each anagram to find the correct vocabulary word. After solving, write a related keyword or draw a symbol to represent the word in the third column of the table. First, the answer is movement. Second, rigid objects. Third, soft objects. And fourth, force. Now, let us define. Movement is the change in the position of an object over time. Rigid objects. Objects that are hard and cannot be easily bent, deformed, or compressed. Soft objects. Objects that can be easily bent, deformed, or compressed. And force, push, or pull. Day 2. Force brainstorm activity. When you hear the word force, what do you think of? Share your ideas with your seatmate. Then write them on a sticky note or colored paper. Stick your paper on the board around the word force to create a brainstorm display. Wow! Great ideas! You mentioned things like pushing, pulling, moving objects, and even strength. These are all connected to the scientific definition of force, which is a push or pull that can make an object move or stop or change direction. Your thoughts show how force is everywhere in our daily lives. A force is an action that changes or maintains the motion of a body or object. It is either a push or a pull. Forces can change an object's speed, its direction, and even its shape. Before we dive deeper into learning about forces, think about this. What should you do first if you need to conduct an experiment using certain materials? Scientists explore, describe, and discover more about the world around us. In the same time way, you'll start by observing and describing the things around you, then classifying them based on their characteristics. For today's lesson, we'll focus on identifying soft and rigid objects. Activity number 3, rigid and soft materials. Pair up with your partner for this activity. Look around the classroom and observe the listed objects of materials. Describe their characteristics such as size and texture, and decide if they are rigid or soft. Write your answers down on your worksheet. Here are the example words that you can have: leaf, chair, paper, table, bread, stone, sponge, shelf, cotton, floor, cloth, doorknob. Write your answer in this table. Activity number 3. Let's talk about your answers and what you discovered. Think about these questions as we discuss. First, when can you say an object is rigid? Second, what are the physical properties of soft objects? Third, why is it important to distinguish between soft and rigid objects? Let's answer. First, when can you say an object is rigid? An object is considered rigid if it is hard and cannot be easily bent, deformed, or compressed. Second, what are the physical properties of soft objects? Soft objects can be easily bent, deformed, or compressed. Third, why is it important to distinguish between soft and rigid objects? It is important to distinguish between soft and rigid objects because it determines how much force is needed to change their shape, move, stop, or change their direction. When we know an object is rigid, we can exercise caution to avoid getting hurt or injured in pulling or pushing it. Day 3. Now that we've defined force, let's practice describing it. In a diagram, you can show force with an arrow. The arrowhead tells us the direction of the force to start. Draw an arrow to show which way the force is going. Next, write a phrase describing the force using this pattern. Something or someone pushes or pulls an object or person. For example, the wind pushes the kite forward or the boy pulls the wagon. Remember, the arrows can point up, down, right, left, or even diagonally depending on how the force is applied. Let's give it a try. In this activity, you will identify and describe the different forces acting on objects. You'll practice representing these forces by drawing arrows to show their direction. Remember, the arrowhead indicates where the force is going, whether it's up, down, left, right, or even at an angle. This will help you understand and communicate how forces are applied to objects. Let's begin. First, a girl pressing the phone screen. Second, a boy is carrying a bag. Third, a boy is pushing the light switch. Fourth, a boy is pulling a chair. Fifth, the bigger hand is pulling the rubber band. And sixth, the girl is sweeping the floor. And here are the answers. After completing the activity, let's come together and talk about what we learned. I'd like you to share your drawings and discuss your answers to these questions. First, how would you represent a pushing force in a diagram? What about pulling force? Second, can you identify situations in which forces are balanced or equal? How would you draw the arrows for balanced or equal forces? Let's answer. First, how would you represent a pushing force in a diagram? And what about a pulling force? Pushing force. Draw an arrow pointing away from the object to show it is being pushed. Pulling force. Draw an arrow pointing toward the object to show it is being pulled. Second, Can you identify situations in which forces are balanced or equal? How would you draw the arrows for balanced or equal forces? The answer: balanced forces. Forces are balanced when they are the same size and go in the opposite directions. To show this, draw two arrows of equal size pointing in opposite ways. To deepen your understanding of forces, think about the different forces you encountered in your everyday life. Complete Activity 3, Forces in My Everyday Life, by illustrating 4 situations where you use a push or a pull to complete tasks at home or school. Draw arrows in your illustrations to show the direction of the force. Make sure to label or caption each situation using this pattern. I am pushing or pulling an object plus direction. For example, I am pushing the door forward or I am pulling my chair backward. This will help you see how forces are part of your daily activities. Write your answer in your notebook. Let's discuss your answers and think more about what you learned. Here are some questions to guide our discussion. First, what is the most important task you do daily and why? Second, why is it good for you to do different daily actions? Key points of the lesson. First, forces are everywhere. Forces are all around us, influencing how objects move and interact. Second, impact on daily activities. Forces influence how we interact with objects around us, like pushing a shopping cart, pulling a rolling backpack, or playing with friends. Third, applying scientific processes. By observing how things move, we can better understand the forces at play in our environment. Day 4. Learners' takeaways. Real-life connection. First, why do we need to be aware of how the things around us are moving? Second, why is it important to learn how forces affect how things move? And third, what important scientific skills have you developed in this lesson? And why do you need to develop them? Let's answer. First, why do we need to be aware of how the things around us are moving? The answer: we need to know how things move so we can stay safe and understand the world around us, like when a car is coming or a ball is rolling. Second, why is it important to learn how forces affect how things move? The answer: it's important to learn how forces work because they help us know why things speed up, slow down, or stop moving. Third, what important scientific skills have you developed in this lesson? Why do you need to develop them? The answer: we learn to observe, ask questions, and think about what happens when things move. These skills help us solve problems in science and everyday life. Values integration. First, how can you ensure safety when doing your daily tasks that involve pushing or pulling objects? Second, what are your responsibilities at home and school, and why? And here are the answers. First, how can you ensure safety when doing your daily tasks that involve pushing or pulling objects? The answer, be careful when pushing or pulling things. Check your surroundings. Use both hands if needed and make sure objects aren't too heavy. Number 2, what are your responsibilities at home and school? Why? The answer, at home, help with chores like cleaning or keeping things tidy. At school, listen to teachers and be kind to classmates. These responsibilities keep everything safe and happy for everyone. Let's have the reflection on learning self-assessment. Instructions: revisit the self-assessment checklist used at the start of this week. Ask your students to write their self-assessment ratings using the scale below in the third column of the table below. 1 star, I still need help to do this. 2 stars, I can do this by myself. 3 stars, I can do this by myself and in different ways. Here are the learning targets. First, I can identify rigid and soft objects based on their physical characteristics. Second, I can describe the characteristics of rigid and soft objects. Third, I can classify objects as rigid or soft objects. Fourth, I can define force as a push or pull exerted on an object. Fifth, I can describe forces using arrows in given situations. Sixth, I can identify forces in our daily task. And seventh, I can investigate how rigid and soft objects respond to applied forces. Let's have the formative assessment. True or false? Carefully read the statements below. Write true if the statement is true. Otherwise, write false on the blank space before each number. Number 1, a force is a push or pull applied to an object. The answer is true. Number 2, a doorknob is an example of a rigid object. The answer is true. Number 3, a clay is an example of a soft object. The answer is true. Number 4, you push a broom to sweep trash on the floor. The answer is true. Number 5, when an object is pulled, it moves towards the direction of the pull. The answer is true. Second part is table completion. Complete the table below by drawing an arrow to represent the force applied in each daily task below. Here are the daily tasks. First, wiping the blackboard upward. The answer. Second, pulling a chair backward. The answer is. Third, lifting a box. The answer is. Fourth, pushing a door. The answer is. And fifth, throwing a trash into the bin. The answer is. And that wraps up today's lesson. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for tuning in.